Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Jacob Wile, too.
And welcome to another treasure hunting glee thrilling, edition of Tiki's Universe. Wow, I'm getting bad at those, Jacob. I'm getting really bad at those.
Well, it's hard to come up with them on the fly.
I know, right? Welcome to another golden edition of Tiki's Universe. Welcome to another godly edition of Tiki's Universe. Welcome to another deity-defying edition of Tiki's Universe.
You get the idea.
There's three good ones for you. There's three good ones.
Yeah.
So, of course, Tiki's Universe, we come up with, we're talking mostly about DuckTales. That's what we've mostly been talking about. But alas, the well of DuckTales episodes, the new ones, is kind of dried up. This is going to be the last one we're going to get. I'm assuming at least until 2018, because it seems like they're just going to go on a hiatus with it.
No idea. I mean, I hope not. They have plenty of episodes. I'm sure they have plenty of episodes.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But we have plenty of ideas to subside that content, folks. Of course, we're going to be looking at shows that we've already been covering, like Milo Murphy. Jacob, any idea when Star's coming back at all?
Sometime in November. I think around the first or second week of November.
Okay, so that should be something we'll definitely be looking into. So we'll have stuff. We'll have stuff. But we also want to keep the DuckTales train flowing while we can. And so we've also got some ideas when it comes to that, which we'll be revealing towards the end of the podcast here. But in the meantime, Jacob, this week's new episode, episode 8 of the season, is The Living Mummies of Toth-Ra. What do you think of this one?
I enjoyed it, like as we said in our previous attempts. Sorry for that, people. But as we said before, I did enjoy this episode. It felt like a classic episode, like a good mix of the old and the new.
Yeah, I feel like this episode definitely felt like a lot like an old school, like 80s DuckTales episode, just in the formula of it.
And it's a formula that works, and they try to prove it here. And I wouldn't call it my favorite episode so far, but I did enjoy it a lot.
I think this is like solidly like in the middle of my episode rankings, and I don't know, it's definitely not up there with some of my favorites, but it's definitely not nearly as forgettable as something like Mark Beeks or God Help Us, the Gladstone episode, the Gander Gladstone episode. I'm still bitter about that one.
Gladstone.
What?
It's Gladstone Gander.
Well, forgive me for not memorizing that asshole's name, but anyways. Yeah, this is a classic Indiana Jones setup. I mean, just look at Scrooge's outfit.
Pithy.
Jacob, right away, just with Webby losing her hat and everything like that, and then falling down the different tunnels, I was instantly flashed back to Treasure of the Lost Lamp, of course, the theatrically released DuckTales movie.
I mean, it is very reminiscent of that. I mean, the whole lost civilization and all that.
Hey, Jacob.
Yeah.
I just want to check. I don't know. I'm having problems with like my Facebook, and you're not seeing on the screen share Facebook messages pop up, are you?
No.
Okay, good. I think it's popping up like outside of that window, but I'm just paranoid that these messages are going to pop up in the actual screen share. So if you see that happening, just tell me. But I think we're good. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
Okay, just checking.
All right, so like I said, it's a classic setup, and I did remind. It does kind of reminisce of Treasure of the Lost Lamp.
Yeah, like I said, especially with the adventure, the costumes, the fact that they're kind of going on an Indiana Jones type like adventure through a temple.
The only thing like I said, I wish just Donald was in this episode.
You know what? I feel like the reason why Donald Duck isn't in this episode, I feel like, is just because they have a lot of personalities in this episode they need to give some stuff to. So there's the three nephews, there's Webby, there's Scrooge, there's the new characters.
I mean, I understand why. I just would have liked to see him at least even briefly.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing with Donald in this episode is that this episode was actually a kind of a takeoff, or not so much a remake, but it was inspired by Sphinx for the Memories, which was an early episode that Jacob and I actually covered on our sister DuckTales series, Discovering DuckTales.
Yeah, I was like spoiler ahead for what I'm about to say. Like, I was half expecting the treacherous servant of Toth-Ra to be named Sarkis.
Sarkis, more like Suckus.
Yeah.
Seriously, that guy was kind of lame. This guy is a much better villain. This guy is
much more thought out plan.
Yes. This guy is named Sabath, I want to say.
I think that was it.
He's voiced by, I'm probably gonna butcher this name. He's voiced by Bassem Youssef.
Sounds about right.
All right. So yeah, this guy is basically like the Egyptian equivalent.
One thing I like about this is like they cast like ethnically accurate actors for a lot of their characters.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, they cast like I don't know if he's exactly Egyptian, but he's definitely from that area, most likely, or at least that has heritage in that area. So I think it's really cool of them to do that kind of thing. Not that I'm trying to get into the politically correct territory or anything.
Oh, of course. So Sabath.
Though admittedly, this episode definitely is more politically correct than the original series was.
Yeah, and let's get into probably my least favorite character of the episode, which was, she wasn't a terrible character, but I didn't really like the modern lingo that they were going for with the Amunet character, voiced by, of course, Cree Summers.
Yeah, man, it didn't really bother me too much.
To me, it just kind of felt like pandering to the youth, you know what I mean? And maybe I might sound like an old man for just using that terminology to begin with, but it was just like, and she's just like so like, oh, we worship our fashion sensitive leader, and it's just like, it feels like every line out of this girl has to be some sort of like, do you get it? We're like, like we're ancient Egyptians, but we're also hip and cool.
I thought it was like just showing how out of touch with reality they are.
How in touch with reality or out of touch with reality?
Out of touch with reality.
I mean, I guess, but at the same time, like that's kind of my problem, is that this girl kind of just talks like a typical like valley girl, whereas like I feel like that would be so are you saying they're kind of like denying that they're in this sort of weird slave and master relationship?
I mean, kind of, and it's just like I like how it's kind of shown kind of obvious that they're not exactly the most intelligent group in a bunch, especially considering the revolution is built around a burrito.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting to look at, I guess, when it comes to their kind of Valley Girl demeanor. I don't know. Again, that's kind of like the one thing is like that's the one thing that I always get a little trepidatious with about this series, is that I always get a little bit leery when we pull like modern day lingo and stuff like that. And I mean, this episode, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like an all out assault of that, like something like Teen Titans Go or anything like that. Like, it was all very tame. I was just like kind of on the surface of it. I was like, okay, this character is talking the way a 2017 like young woman would talk, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I understand. I'm not defending anything. That was just my explanation.
No, I hear you. Like I said, it doesn't ruin the episode for me or anything. It just kind of threw me out of the maybe it threw me out of the vibe of the adventure a little bit, just the fact that they're talking like so modern day. And I'm sure people in the comments will have good explanations about that artistic choice. They usually strike me down a peg on my opinion, so we'll see what happens there. I'm sure they'll have something to say.
Quite possibly.
Okay, so let's see. What else do you want to cover with this episode, Jacob?
Well, I mean, I guess we can cover the Louie and Webby subplot.
Yeah, first of all, I love Louie's rationale of just staying in the giant room of treasure because, of course, Scrooge is going to find it eventually.
Yeah, that is like, and even Webby admits that's a good point.
It's like Scrooge is like, Scrooge is basically just like a magnet for giant treasure rooms.
Exactly. That's something that he's able to swim in it. He can probably sniff it out like a guard dog. He's like,
so
"You smell the gold this way, boys."
So I feel like this episode was a good use of Webby as a supporting character and not so much in the forefront of the episode like she's been in other episodes.
Yeah, I do agree with that one. Like, it showed her expertise without being one of the main. Not that I had any complaints about her in the Terra Firma. She just came across. She and Louis.
No, I mean we've already kind of been over this. Is that it's not that she's a bad character at all. She's a great character. It's just that we felt like, especially because of the episodes kind of switching the air date order around a little bit, it felt like almost too much of a good thing, and we were focusing on Webby a little too much in a couple episodes.
What I was getting at was like how I think this wasn't really a complaint, but like Huey and Webby in the Terra Firma episode, they both kind of came across as arrogant know-it-alls in a way.
I guess you could see that, yeah.
And then just they kind of toned it down here, and like they gave rational explanation as to why she was. By the way, because she has experience and she's known that kind of thing. Where Louis is just like, it's like, yeah, I'll just do whatever I can to get by and all that.
So Louis is essentially kind of like worked himself out to be the con artist, right? Because he's just sort of like, he'll get into any scheme that he can think of to work his way out of a situation.
Pretty much, even though a lot of them are just like half-baked at best.
Right.
like I am the pharaoh. I'm the pharaoh of pharaohs.
Yeah.
But, you know,
in the meantime, we have Huey, who's continuing to kind of show that he's like, Huey is definitely kind of the amalgamation of all three of the original characters, where he's like the one who's obsessed with the Junior Woodchuck guidebook. He's kind of the Boy Scout of the group. Once again, I'm really liking Huey.
It's like, you're not the sharpest sickle in this shit. They're like, I have a sickle sharpening badge that says otherwise. It's like they like shows like obsessive compulsiveness with that kind of book. It's like yes, it has everything.
And then Louis doesn't have a lot to do, but hey, he does choreograph like a Thriller style dance number. So
Dewey does in fact like he's like, okay, this is a bad idea.
I mean, it might have not been the most helpful idea, but hey, it looked cool. I mean, I don't know.
Egyptian Thriller.
So, once again, I think this episode did a good job of, it maybe didn't do like the most phenomenal job ever of distinguishing the three nephews, but I feel like each character in this adventure, had a moment, had a thing to do. I really love how devoted Scrooge was to finding Webby and Huey.
It's like they said, it was like family first, treasure next.
Yeah, like Scrooge was really, like you really get the fatherly quality to Scrooge. And also, I think this, I'm really kind of starting to see the lines blur between David Tennant and Alan Young when it comes to performance. I mean, like Alan Young is obviously always going to be the original, and Tennant's always going to have like that slightly more accentuated accent. But just the family man quality that Scrooge has is really kind of starting to show through in these new episodes.
Yeah, I hope the whole switching around doesn't affect that too much. Where it's like in this episode he's kind and fatherly, and then the next episodes he's like, I want my treasure.
Yeah, we'll see how. Because already this series has not proved to be the most reliable when it comes to production schedule versus airing schedule. So we'll see how that goes moving forward.
We can't really blame the producers on that one.
No, of course I don't. But
that's all Disney XD's fault.
Oh yeah,
we love your shows, Disney XD, but we just wish you'd have more consistent airing schedules with them and keep them in order when they have strict continuity.
Okay, so what do you think of the Toth-Ra animatronic?
I mean, honestly, I did like the idea behind it, and I also liked the twist behind it. Was like, it's like, oh, they like build it up just to be a Toth, like animatronic, but no, it's the real freaking thing.
I know, right? That was a lot of fun.
I also wish they would devote more of the episode to the whole Curse of Toth-Ra part, but instead of like the last 5 minutes.
I agree with you there. I think that's kind of like where the disconnect for me is sort of coming from with this episode, is that I feel like this episode spent too much time on kind of like the, like Scrooge.
Yeah, like what I felt was like it felt like too much focus on the rebellion part, and then just like instead of just like okay, we have to do this and that, and instead of the whole curse.
Lines, all that Toth-Ra is real, then we'd have like a. But I don't know. Then again, I guess the living Toth-Ra kind of works just as a finale for the episode. So either way, I see its merits. But I do kind of agree with you that just the idea that Toth-Ra was actually alive was so cool that I kind of wish we got a little bit more of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's just an interesting concept. Like I would have liked to see the reveal of the whole assistant being behind the whole thing early on, and then like the real Toth-Ra taking over.
Right. And it would also kind of be a nice fake out of of Sabath, like because of course Sarkis from the original series, he was sort of like a fake out villain all the way through, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, but it was just like basically just going to get Donald to inhabit the body of the pharaoh. Like that, I would have. Like I said, I didn't. This episode wasn't bad in that regards either. But I said I would have liked to see more. Like, because that was like, I mean, that's like in tune with classic DuckTales. Like, would have been like a fresh new take on that.
Sure.
It's like they have these great ideas, but they don't get fleshed out all the way.
Yeah, and I'm kind of thinking that's a reoccurring issue with this show. I don't want to call it a problem just yet, but I'm definitely thinking that one of the things this show could use a little bit more of is kind of like a good melding of the two, like of the classic DuckTales formula mixed with the the more current humor and pacing and sensibilities of this new show. Because
honestly, I think this episode felt too focused on the gags and humor of it, rather than the adventure. Not necessarily that's a bad thing in per se, or some cases, but this,
like I said, like the thing that mostly bothered me when it came to the gags was like, oh, look how modern and hip the Mummies are.
That wasn't the problem for me, but it was just like they focused too much on that instead of like the whole adventure aspect. So it should be like a good balance between the two. Like there are some episodes of the original that were strictly more comedic and more that were.
And then there were some episodes of the original that could be like an Indiana Jones movie.
Especially the Treasure of the Golden Suns from the very beginning.
Oh yeah! Oh my god!
And I'm not really asking this series to be exactly like the original one, because let's face it, if we just want something exactly like the original, we'll just watch the original one.
Of course. Like I said, I'm thinking the disconnect here is just the fact that they're wanting this episode to so much be like an homage to the original series, so much so that it is very much kind of a takeoff specifically of an original episode in an early season 1 episode of the original series. And yet I feel like when they do that, they kind of, like you said, Jacob, they insert a little bit too much of the new series like gag-based formula and pacing, which I think works really well for episodes of this new series that are kind of more fixed in the style of the new series. Like, for example, something like, I didn't love the episode, but last week's episode with Mark Beeks definitely had a lot of gag-based humor in it. Definitely wouldn't be something that would have worked in the original DuckTales all that well. It definitely didn't follow the original DuckTales formula. But for everything that we've been building, around the series and around its sensibilities and pace and sense of humor and everything, that episode worked. And I actually do like the Living Mummies of Toth-Ra a bit more than I like Mark Beeks, just because, Mark Beeks, not as unlikable of a jerk as freaking
Gladstone.
Yeah, Gladstone. Not as unlikable, but still, like, I can see how people would hate that character. However, this episode did have a lot going for it in terms of it. It was a nice blend of adventure and comedy. I think every character got a good moment. Like I said, I think this might be the best illustration of Scrooge as a good father figure that we've seen so far.
Yeah, it's like that I will agree with.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we haven't really hit on it all that much yet. What do you think of the burritos being the big plot device?
It's definitely never seen burrito. Ever since Invader Zim, I haven't seen a burrito hold such importance.
I'm more of a taco guy, Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, I like hard tacos. I like soft tacos. Either way.
And every once in a while, I'll eat a tamale, but burritos aren't my thing. It's just burritos are too loaded. I always feel bloated when I eat a burrito. It's too much food in one package.
Well, I mean, I always do, like, soft tacos and, like, insert your own, like, where you can, like, but it's not necessarily that much at once. But this is, but seeing it, like I said, I haven't seen it. I mean, there might have been episodes since then, but since Invader Zim, I haven't seen a burrito used as a plot device in such a way.
Oh God, yes, Invader Zim. Oh my God.
I mean, it's definitely
yes.
I will definitely say it's a creative way to inspire a revolution. Even
I love how Scrooge is like he's at the same time like frustrated and yet kind of apathetic about like, well, if that's how they want to do it, then I guess whatever.
He's like, really? Really? That's the stupidest. He's like, even he admits, like, this is the stupidest revolution I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, but then even he could admit, like, whatever. If it works, it works.
Like, I wonder how many revolutions he's been part of.
Oh God. Probably a significant few, I would guess.
I mean, if he says this is the dumbest one, it's like I've been implied he's at least been in at least one or two more.
Right.
So,
okay, let's see. Anything we missing here, Jacob?
The funny thing is, it was from Launchpad of all things.
Yeah, and Launchpad, of course, continues to round himself out as a great, lovable side character. You know, really getting on the same level as his original counterpart. Although, Jacob, it's interesting because with Launchpad, I feel like they're fleshing him out a bit more to have more humor than just like the one joke in the original series of, oh, he's the guy who crashes the planes all the time. I don't know. I mean, I totally get that. And it is working. It's making his sense of humor more multidimensional. You know what I mean? However, at the same time, I kind of wish we'd get at least one or two plane crash scenes here and there just to sprinkle it in, because that is a big part of his character, is the crashes.
Well, the most recent reference I remember was in the Terra Firmians episode. Like, I've never crashed a train before.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, can you drive something without crashing it? It's like even then, crashing is still in his blood.
Yep. All right.
And his whole plan, honestly, surprisingly worked out when he. And how about when he absconded with Scrooge's credit card to buy everybody burritos? Even Scrooge is like, my money. I'm just honestly surprised Scrooge has a credit card.
Yeah. A Scrooge credit card?
Yeah, it does make sense. It makes more sense than the Batman credit card.
It does make more sense than the Batman credit card. You're right about that.
I mean, I'm just honestly surprised he would. I mean, he's not one to spend money frivolously, and he has a credit card.
All right, Jacob. Well, I think that's about it, unless you have any other points you want to make on this one.
I think we pretty much covered everything. The whole Webby and Louie, the other characters. I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, I think we've packed it all in there, folks. It was like I said, it's kind of in the middle of the road for me in terms of the episodes we've gotten so far. It's definitely not on the lower end of the spectrum, like something like House of the Lucky Gander. It's definitely not super duper high up there, like something like Beagle Birthday Massacre. I still think is my favorite of the series so far. But it's right in the middle. It's firmly right in the middle. It's comfortably right in the middle. It's a very solid episode.
I will agree.
Okay, folks. Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we will be doing more stuff outside of DuckTales for Tiki's Universe, including Milo Murphy's Law and Welcome to the Wayne, as well as Star vs. Force of Evil. And eventually we'll be doing Big Hero 6. Jacob, you said there's going to be a Big Hero 6, like a 1-hour pilot, right? Kind of like how they did it with DuckTales.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll be covering that when it comes around. So we'll definitely be having a lot of content with Tiki's Universe. In the meantime, folks, we're also going to be covering some directly DuckTales specific stuff. Now, from last episode, one of our commenters, Legends DC, suggested, can you review some of the shorts? And Legends DC, we would be absolutely happy to do that for you. What we will do, the next DuckTales podcast we're going to do is going to be a commentary for DuckTales, the movie, Treasure of the Lost Lamp, which is going to be kind of like a big sort of getting our foot back in the door of the DuckTales series, like the original DuckTales. Then after that, I would be absolutely happy. Like, I'm sure it'll be a pretty short podcast because, you know, the shorts he's talking about, I believe, Jacob, range from like 45 seconds to a minute and a half.
Yeah, I mean, they're on a lot of them.
But there are some good character stuff in it. There's some good character stuff, some good gags. Maybe since they were released before the show, maybe we can like look at it in the context of what we know so far as well. I think we can get a good podcast out of that. And then after that, folks, we'll be diving headfirst back into Discovering DuckTales, which is our main series covering the original DuckTales series. Dragon, I believe the episode we left off on with that one was the haunted house episode, right? Like the house of whatever it was.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so that was an appropriate one to leave off on because that was a very memorable one. A lot of people have that on VHS because it was distributed for Halloween. So that was an appropriate episode to leave off on. So we'll definitely be continuing on with that. We'll have plenty of DuckTales content and plenty of other animated content for you guys. And in the meantime, woohoo!
Woo-woo.